So when we talk about secrecy with intelligence operations, I think a lot of Americans think of a CIA operating in Moscow that requires a lot of secrecy to protect the agents and to protect the missions. But there's also an increase in domestic intelligence activities, both at the FBI and even state and local law enforcement officers. How is that different, and how is the secrecy more damaging to our society?
Well, I think you're exactly right in that we can expect, for example, covert spying operations by the CIA in Moscow to remain secret. But what we can't and shouldn't expect is intelligence activities carried out on domestic soil that are going far beyond what agencies are permitted to do. Let me give you an example. We know that the FBI has sought to use informants and sent them into mosques and particular Muslim communities. They've done that in California and in a case that the ACLU has challenged, where an informant was instructed to go into mosque and listen, to seek to listen to conversations. So what ended up happening is he listened to First Amendment protected conversations about religious views, religious exercise. He recorded people's names and information, not anyone who was doing anything wrong, but quite simply people who were going about their daily lives and acts of worship in a religious community. And he was also instructed to start inflammatory conversations to see who would respond. We sued, our California affiliate sued, and the informant himself provided information. The government came back and claimed state secret privilege in that context in order to prevent aspects of the case from going forward. And this is an example of where secrecy becomes corrosive. Here is the FBI going beyond what it should legitimately be doing, investigating actual acts of wrongdoing or wrongdoing that's about to happen based on evidence, and instead instigating something where there is no wrongdoing, and then seeking to hide its abuses and violations of equal protection, First Amendment, under the veil of secrecy. And that is not just corrosive, as I've said, it is deeply damaging to the communities that the FBI seeks to work in, and it's damaging to our values.
And what impact does that have on the communities?
I think it is hard to overstate the mistrust that minority, in particular American Muslim communities, now have of law enforcement as a result of these programs in which people have been targeted on the basis of their beliefs, not on the basis of having done anything wrong. And that has a tremendous impact on the communities as well as on society as a whole. Within the communities themselves, based on work that I've done and that my colleagues have done, we know that an entire generation of American Muslim youth is growing up fearful of law enforcement, fearful of exercising their First Amendment rights. One of the examples that stands out to me is of a young man whose true love was international relations, but he was fearful that his conversations about domestic and foreign policy would subject him to law enforcement scrutiny, so he decided to change to business.
And that concern's not specious. I mean, the ACLU recovered training materials that actually identified political activity and discussions of foreign policy.
Indeed, in the last decade, there have been numerous examples, not just of training materials, but of FBI and law enforcement records themselves showing that there is a domestic intelligence surveillance system in which people's innocent activity is reported as suspicious, uploaded into government databases, and that subjects them to additional law enforcement scrutiny. And what are some of the other impacts of this? So we hear over and over again that people within minority communities, particularly the American Muslim community, are reluctant to report crime, reluctant to report domestic violence for fear of inviting unjustified scrutiny. And that kind of fear just delegitimizes law enforcement, and it creates less security for all of us.